In a hookup culture, people can fake love, they can fake interest, they can fake all the things that take a long time to develop. So Grindr basically fills in the void where there's no culture, where there's no family and no community. And the people that surrender and basically innocently, or I should say with ignorance, give up their standards and become one with the Grindr culture. These are people that unfortunately will probably never in their lives taste love and relationships. Hi everybody, Paul Angelo here. Welcome to another field trip. I'm here in this extraordinary, beautiful location by Divide, Colorado. Divide is a small, tiny city not too far from Colorado Springs. And I drove here today. Frank was supposed to join me, but he fell asleep. So I came here on my own. I'd like to discuss with you something very, very important. So let me first share with you something that someone very important once said. And this is really, really, really important to understand. Tell me about your culture. Tell me about your community. Tell me about your family. And I will predict your future. So the fastest way to predict the future for someone is to ask them these three questions. Tell me about the culture in which you live. Tell me about the community that you belong to. Tell me about the family that is there to support you. And I will predict your future in this world. And so this actually makes sense when you really think about it, but we really need to think about it because this is not something that sinks in really easily. A lot of people, they disregard the influence of our culture on our psychology, on our sense of being. A lot of people do not take into account that if we are part of a strong community or a weak community, that it really does impact our ability to succeed. And also, if you come from a family that reinforces the culture, that reinforces what the community tells you to do, then you've got this beautiful three-layered programming about what works in life and what doesn't work in life. A lot of the behaviors, and this is really crucial to understand, a lot of the behaviors that you expect other people to have in their psychology, some of the behaviors that you take for granted, these behaviors have to be programmed into these humans somehow. And that programming is either done by the culture, and sometimes you call this the individuation process, then by the community, and that's called socialization, and family, and that's called domestication. And when you date a man, when you date someone, and you notice that he is just a wild horse, not the wilderness is still inside of him, it simply means that this person never came from a culture, never came from a strong community. Those behaviors, the bad behaviors, were not washed away by the influence of the community and the culture, and the bad behaviors were allowed. So basically, when you want to date someone and they look beautiful, he is really, on the outside looks really put together. He may be also very successful, like super successful, lots of money and lots of resources. But that doesn't change the fact that the behaviors that are necessary for relatedness, they have to come from a different kind of environment, not the career environment, but the social environment. And that's why culture is so essential, that's why community is so essential, and that's why family is so essential. So what happens when none of those are present? Well, there is a void. There's a void, and something has to fill that void, and that's where Grindr comes in. And that's why Grindr became so popular. The reason why Grindr is so popular is because it fills in the void where the culture disappeared, the community disappeared, the family disappeared, and now we basically live in a hookup culture, which is basically, when you think about sociology and how societies grow and develop, they basically return to the lowest common denominator unless you have reinforcements, unless you have guardians or gatekeepers, unless you have institutions that basically protect the values that make relationships possible, that make life good, and make happiness possible. So over the hundreds of years, over the course of the development of the civilization, that's how these cultures came about. And now these cultures are going away, and the lowest common denominator solutions are now dominating the landscape of socialization and basically the culture. Although I don't think you can even call it a culture, what we have with Grindr or the hookup culture, but because it's not functional, it's dysfunctional. But for the sake of accuracy, we can look at it as a cultural phenomenon. The hookup culture is what we live in today, where sex is exaggerated, physical appearance is exaggerated, or external appearance is now more important than the internal character traits, the internal parts of us that are more important longer term. But in a hookup culture, that doesn't matter. In a hookup culture, people can fake love, they can fake interest, they can fake all the things that take a long time to develop. Unfortunately, the hookup culture cannot produce long-term sustainable relationships because the hookup culture, it violates, I would say, either all or virtually all. So say 95% of all the norms of how you meet, right? How you meet. So in the hookup culture, the pretext to meet is different than a legitimate pretext. Then number two, how you connect, what you say, the settings that you go to, how you treat each other. Then the quality of the interaction. So whether you're respectful, loving, and caring, or you're objectifying and you walk away and you abandon someone. And then general sense of good communication skills to basically be good to someone and impress someone, show value, show that you are worthy of the other person's love. And basically this is seduction, this is dating, this is a romantic affair. But see, that doesn't happen in a hookup culture. So Grindr basically fills in the void where there's no culture, where there's no family and no community. And the people that surrender and basically innocently, or I should say with ignorance, give up their standards and become one with the Grindr culture. These are people that unfortunately will probably never in their lives taste love and relationships. And it's important to say this for the following reason, that if you go into the wrong culture and if you assimilate into that culture, basically you will acquire habits, communication habits, attitudes, perspectives, and these things take a while to program into your consciousness. So if you spend some time, let's say a couple years on Grindr, by the time that those years pass by, you look in the mirror and you can't recognize yourself, you can't recognize your habits, you became a different person. So the culture changed you. The culture of the hookup culture changed you. The Grindr culture changed you. And that's why I say for most people, unless they get therapy, unless they get coaching, they will never be able to identify the dysfunctional patterns that they acquired from Grindr. Let me just share with you a few of those. Objectification, treating people like objects, treating people like they are, so this is called materialism or reductionism to the material, basically treating human beings as just pieces of flesh, removing divinity, removing the spiritual aspect to our presence. You also are experiencing very poor communication loops. A lot of communication is not finished. You communicate with someone, but you never get a response. They disappear or they neglect to answer right away. Or with Grindr, now they also have this amazing feature where the person can basically ban you and all the exchanges, all the communication you've had with that person just vanishes. So basically, those patterns of behaviors teach you abandonment, teach you reaction as opposed to conscious thought. They teach you how to hurt someone. They teach you all the bad things that you can absolutely never have in your psychology if you want marriage, if you want something longer term. Because you're going to have to go deep with someone, resolve conflicts, not walk away, not be trivial, not keep open loops, open communication loops, and open energetic loops. You're going to have to learn how to defend the equilibrium of integrity in your relationships. I mean, these are complex things that, it's like level 10. And on Grindr, you are level 0 in terms of the skill development, in terms of how to prepare yourself for relationships. So obviously, I'm talking here about a lot of things here, and it all relates to the culture, the Grindr, the culture of hookups and how all of it comes together to answer the question, is the person that you are looking for capable of providing the relatedness skills to make relationships possible? And if they operated in the hookup culture for several years, the answer is a no. And they will probably create a lot of traumatic experiences and confusion and probably overwhelm and most likely abandonment. And if the person comes from a different culture, from a culture where the relationships that are in the person's life are protected, defended, and defended for real, with passion, with zest, with consciousness, because the person recognizes that relationships are absolutely mandatory for normal life, then that person is going to be ready. So here I'm referring to the choices for partners, that when you choose someone, if that person doesn't come from a background or environment where they were taught by the culture, the community, or the family how to behave, they probably will never know how to behave. And they will probably create very difficult situations, and they'll be impossible to connect to. And unfortunately, this is basically most of people today. They're basically lone wolves without adaptive mechanisms of behavior to be flexible, to be open, and to navigate the challenging, very challenging situations in all relationships, especially today. Especially today. I mean, guys, it was different during the 80s. I mean, it was difficult during the 80s. It was difficult in the 90s. Now we have technology distractions. We have now the pandemic. We have all these difficulties coming from every place. So, I mean, it's almost impossible for most people to connect today. So I'm sharing with you these deeper insights for you to really recognize that this is a different time. The psychological closeness that you need to create has to come from the inside, and the person has the ability to communicate, to solve conflicts, to negotiate, to compromise, to let go, and to surrender as opposed to win and to control. And these behaviors will not come to you from Grindr, from the culture of hookups, culture of consumerism, culture of materialism and reductionism to objectification and penises and tops and bottoms. I'm sorry. I'm just really sorry, guys. It will never come from there. The romance that you want will never come from there. So the romance is possible, but not from there. And it's just a process of alignment for you to wake up and for you to see that it does matter where your culture comes from. It does matter whether you have a community or not. It does matter whether you have a family or not. Because if you don't, then your identity will be weak, your socialization will be incomplete, you will be basically unfinished product with a lot of psychological parts to you that were never completed, never allowed to complete themselves. Because to do that, we need validation from others. We need someone's feedback that's direct, that's honest and deep for our identity, our sense of connectedness to be functioning properly. And we absolutely need to be domesticated. We need to be able to constrict ourselves, which means we have to be confident in our ability to basically enter into a temporary prison with our lovers when we get to know them so that they feel safe. Yes, relationships are restrictions, if you're really honest about it. And if we don't have that previous experience with our restrictions in a culture setting, in a community setting, in a family setting, we won't be able to constrict ourselves on a one-on-one level with a lover. So, as you can see, there's a lot more to relationships than you thought. It's a pretty intense process of developing your identity, developing your social identity, and then developing your one-on-one lover identity. These things will not come automatically. These processes takes years and years, sometimes decades. And we need to have a good culture, a good community, an excellent sense of the family connections for all these processes to be finished in a loving, caring, in a proper way. Otherwise, everybody's going to have baggage. And everybody's going to be basically damaged goods to such a degree that no connections are possible. And on some level, we see that today. Everybody has become damaged goods on levels that cannot be disentangled in a normal way. And most people simply don't do therapy, don't work on themselves. So it becomes this very strange world of attempting connections, struggling to make them happen, and yet never succeeding. And this is the world we live in. This is the world we live in. I believe that there are amazing solutions, but the solutions have to be different. The solutions have to bring people closer together. We need to bring back the culture. And this is why I'm working on the Gay Eden spiritual adventure, because it's all about the culture, the symbols, the meaning, the depth, the opportunities and possibilities for transcendence. We need that as a background where we create the second level, which is the community. And that's the Big Gay Family Social Program. And then from there, you build your family in the program, and that becomes your family. So the 3 tiers are given to you: the cultural tier, the community tier, and the family tier or branch. These 3 things are offered to you as a comprehensive, you can say, approach to transformation of your relatedness skills and your approach to relationships. And this is why Big Gay Family Social Program is such an extraordinary adventure and such an amazing opportunity for everyone who really seeks love and adventure or who really seeks love and intimacy in marriage, to really take it seriously and make it work this time. So if you're curious about the Big Gay Family Social Program, please come to the website at biggayfamily.com. And I'm super excited to see you in the program and sharing with you all this wisdom, not just in theory, but in practice. Also, those of you who are interested in the Gay Eden spiritual adventure, it's going to be an amazing time to discuss the Gay Eden lectures and all the symbols and all the new things that are going to change your life. And I'm super excited to share that with you in the upcoming weeks. And for that, please come to my personal website at paulangelo.com. So here I am in this beautiful location. Let me show you a little bit more. This is actually amazingly beautiful. Let me show you. Can you see? So in front of me there's the sun, and it's setting, and it's just freaking beautiful here. I wish Frank actually decided to come here with me. He's going to regret it, but I'll be back here for sure. This is paradise here. So anyway, I'm sending you the vibrations of paradise, goodness and love, good vibrations, solution orientation, love, happiness, and all the wisdom to make it all possible. I'm sending all of that to you. Okay, my friends, I'm super excited to be here with you. I appreciate you. I'm grateful to be here with you. And I'm looking forward to our next video in the near future. Okay, my friends, talk to you soon.